To start us off, we've got Barbara Sanders today, and luckily it's being recorded, who's going to share with us about completing your path. And I believe that's the pathway, isn't it, Barbara?
Yes, it is, John. Definitely
All right.
complete your first path. I completed my first path earlier this year and thought I would share because I do, when I mentor people, this is the process that I go through. And this is also just personally how I tackle completing a path and just lessons shared. So, just a little bit of background about myself. I've been in Toastmasters. Well, I've been at my present club for about going on 4 or 5 years now. I've also been at the district level so as a public relations manager. I've worked as a vice president of public relations for several years with my club. I've also mentored Toastmasters clubs and mentored members as well. So I'd like to just start with just how we got here because we didn't always have pathways. Initially, we had the paper manuals, and I just thought for kicks, I would show. I've got I've got is just like the cover of one of the manuals. This is the competent leader manual, and then also another advanced manual, which obviously is not coming up too well. But we had paper manuals, and we would order what we wanted to study. Everyone started out with the competent communicator manual, and then with advanced manuals, you would just choose. So this one is communicating on video, which is what we're doing now. Now, pathways came about to reach a wider range of people. This educational system, we refer to it in our club as the legacy path, and it has been in process since I would say about the 70s or so. So it was time to change and kind of get up to speed with where we were with our technology and just to be able to reach a wider range of people. For that, a learning platform system was created and everything was made electronic for us. And I've actually broken this speech up into three different portions. And after about, we'll say about 5 or 10 minutes, I'll open it up for a Q&A for each section before we proceed to the next one. Now, what I liked about the legacy path is that I was able to meet everyone in the club, especially as you went through the competent leader portion. You would have to speak with other members as they signed off on your projects. So it was just speaking was built in to the club. I was so nervous to walk up to someone and say, "Hey, will you sign off on my project for me?" But it really helped me be able to reach out to talk to people who I wasn't normally used to talking to. And then also, it just kind of got everybody in the club involved in that process of my growth and development. I like to refer to the educational process of Toastmasters in terms of incremental speaking. We have small speaking roles that we start with that help us go from just almost being mute, so to speak, where we're not accustomed to speaking, to where we can just pretty much talk to anybody that we find that will listen to us. I want to I'll share my screen with you so that I can just demonstrate what I mean by that incremental speaking process. Okay. Can everybody see this screen here? Okay, great. Thanks, John. So the incremental speaking roles help us develop as a member. And the reason I look at it this way is just stepping back a little bit from school, just from elementary school on, we were pretty much rewarded based on our ability to be quiet and not talk. And so if you didn't talk, then you were a good student. But if you kept talking and talking and talking, then you obviously were a problem child. And so as an adult, we may have learned that if we stay quiet, everyone would see us as being good. But as an adult, we need to be able to reach out, talk to other people in order to get jobs. If we're self employed, we want to work with other businesses and other people to help them out. And I find that Toastmasters really helps us develop those skills so that we can achieve the goals that we need. When we first joined, when, during our first meeting, I would say that is our first speaking opportunity. And the way I've looked at this is the skills that we've developed as we've gone through with each speaking role. And I recommend a particular way of going through each speaking role because what we found in our club is you'll find some people who are really comfortable with speaking and they'll come in, they'll take on a role as the Toastmaster and the general evaluator, give a couple of speeches, and they feel as if they've conquered Toastmasters and then they're off on their way. And we find that it's best to gradually build those skills over time, which helps not only the person who is eager to learn to speak, but it also helps the club as well as we grow together and we become comfortable evaluating one another and just listening to each other. So the first time we come to a meeting, that's our impromptu speech where we briefly talk about ourselves, and that's our first speaking opportunity. And I recommend once you join the club, then you take on either the timer or the grammarian role. So these are really small speaking roles that if you're just really can't talk in front of somebody, at the very minimum, you can hold up a timer and just, okay, you spoke for 1 minute and 22 seconds. And that was it. And so you were able to speak in front of somebody. Then and then alternate between the grammarian role. So this will help you develop your listening skills. You're creating a report on the fly and presenting it in front of people. So you're listening to those ums and ahs and just getting comfortable just saying something. Those first two roles just help you get comfortable just saying something in front of an audience. Next, we move on to our invocator role. This is, I would say, technically our first prepared speech. And this is where we may find a quote online, something inspirational that we're able to share in front of the audience. It's a very small speaking role, but it gets us out there, it gets us beyond our comfort level so that we can speak in front of someone. After that, and I'm going to, right now, I'm just breaking this apart into the roles for our meeting. Later on, I'll combine these two to show you how they can blend together. But I just want you to understand the concept of incremental speaking first and foremost. So next we have our speech evaluator. And I recommend this after we have given at least 1 to 2 speeches. And you'll see this as we get into the paths. So this continues to build upon, I refer to this as transferable skills. So we're developing skills that are not only going to help us within the club, but they're going to help us in the office, in our work, in our day-to-day life as well. So now we're listening to someone else speak. This is going to help us become a better speaker. And then it's also going to help us evaluate someone. And again, we're building upon the report creation and just speaking in front of another person. After this, we begin to move into more of a leadership and motivational role as table topics. If you've ever been a table topics master, you know what it's like trying to get somebody to join in and participate in table topics. So you definitely got to find a way to motivate people in order to participate. So this is a small portion of the meeting that we get to lead for just maybe 6 to 8 minutes, but we are combining those skills, impromptu speaking, we're combining a prepared portion of our speaking because we already know what we're going to say. Hey, this is table topics and this is what we do in table topics. Would anybody like to participate? So it is, a portion of it is prepared, but then a portion of it is that leadership and motivation. Building upon this, then we become our Toastmaster. And this is, I would say, really large the first time I was a Toastmaster, I know I was really nervous. I'm leading the whole portion of the meeting. This is where a lot of skills are put into place. We are responsible for keeping the meeting on time. We are making sure that everyone feels comfortable in the meeting and that everyone is heard and seen. And of course, we still have those skills of motivation and leadership. And can everybody hear me? I think my microphone, you can, you can hear me? Okay, good. I think my microphone just went out. But so finally, we become the general evaluator. And as the general evaluator, we're still building upon the role as table topics. Not, excuse me, table topics, but as Toastmasters. So we're continuing to lead the meeting, and then the motivation, the timekeeping, all of that. As you can see, these are skills that are built upon each other. And I don't know, are y'all still able to see the screen or not? I think it disappeared. You're not able to see the screen? Okay.
Screen
Sorry.
disappeared and your volume just went up. Actually got louder.
My volume's louder? Okay. Yeah, my microphone, my headphones kind of went out on me, so I took them off.
I got you.
Okay. So that is the first portion of the meeting. So we're getting introduced to our incremental speaking. We're understanding how we got from our legacy path to pathways. I'd like to open it up if anyone has any questions before I move on to the second portion.
Barbara, I don't have any questions, so I just wanted to give you a shout out for using that concept of incremental speaking, because I do think so many people feel like the first thing you have to do is that icebreaker. And for some of us, making that first jump it's a big deal. And so just I'm thinking of, if I were a BPE or again, a club leader, being able to help people make those incremental steps. And I just wanted to say thank you for introducing that concept to me.
Yes, thank you, Candace. And that brings up a good point, because I've based this upon my experience, because the HCA Motivators Club wasn't my first club. I've been to clubs not only here in Tennessee, but in Kentucky and in Indiana, and I always just felt out of place. I never really felt I could grow and develop, and I knew there was something in it that was for me, so I kept coming back, but I couldn't understand what it was. And there's an aspect of emotions that are built into speaking. It's not just a matter of getting up and becoming a timer and saying, okay, you spoke for 1 minute and 22 seconds, but you got butterflies in your stomach. At least I know I do. And so as I'm just thinking about what I experienced when I went through this. And so this is how I mentor people in my club, and I recommend, this is just the program that we use on how we help people, because those emotions will build up. And that's what I feel like is what keeps somebody from coming back, because they're just so nervous that they don't want to come back. And so if we can just get them speaking little small things until they feel comfortable, become the timer again. It doesn't matter how many times you're the timer. Go ahead and do it until you no longer feel nervous. And then when you feel comfortable, move on and become the invocator, and move on and give your speech. But don't just jump in and off the bat go ahead and give a speech and become the Toastmaster, because emotionally, I feel like it's just going to be overwhelming. And thank you for that, Candace. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay. Now, let's see here. For the second portion, I'd like to go back and we're going to dig into pathways and start putting this together as a whole. But before I do that, I want to just talk about the competent communicator and the competent leader role. As we transitioned into pathways, we felt that there was the leadership portion wasn't necessarily addressed through pathways. And many of you within the district may know that we in our club, we use something called a full circle award.
And what the Full Circle Award is, once you've gone through and you've become all of the roles within on the agenda, then you get a full circle. So let me see if I can share my screen one more time. Okay. Everyone able to see the screen here? Yeah, okay, good. Let me pull up my agenda. So this is our club website. Once you sign in, you're able to go to the meeting agendas. You'll see we have, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with the roles, but we have Toastmasters, invocation, table topics, so on and so forth. Once you have taken on all of these roles, including giving a speech, then we award you a full circle, which is, we actually have a set. We have coasters, so you put on your table and you can get a full set. And so if in a year you go through the rows 4 times, you get a whole full set of coasters. But it's a way for us to encourage people to take on those roles. And for the second, actually, I think it's the third meeting of each month. When we started Pathways, what we did is we dedicated it to Pathways. So the third meeting, and we just call it our Pathways to Success. You'll see every third week of the month is Pathways to Success. And in that, we start off the meeting with our Vice President of Education will talk about where we are in our full circle. If we are at 1/4 full circle, 1/2 full circle, 3/4, or if you've been awarded a whole full circle where you've gone through each role on the agenda. And we really make it a big deal about how everyone is keeping up and, oh, so-and-so has gone through 2 full circles this year. And so that's just coming from an officer's position, just thinking, how do we motivate our members as a whole? And the full circle really helps, as you can see, just get people signed up for those roles and getting them involved. It also helps to develop that leadership aspect because they're participating in the roles and we are giving them feedback right there on the fly. Now let's go into, let's see here. So we've gone through our incremental speaking. Okay. So let's take a look at the Toastmasters website itself. And this is speaking in terms of, we've got our new member and we want them to get on board with the process. The first thing that we do in our club is we introduce them to, there's 2 websites. First, there's our club website. And on the club website, that's where you're going to sign up for your roles. That's where you'll see the agenda that I just showed you. But then we also have the main Toastmasters website. That's where the educational portion is housed. And so we help our new members, we sign on to how to get signed in to both of those websites. And then we show them, I believe they're doing maintenance this week. Yeah, so we're not able to actually take a look at it. But what I did was, let's see if I have it. I took pictures. Here we go. I know they were going to do they were doing web maintenance this week. So I took pictures. You have your paths, and normally, I'm sure it'll look different once they finish whatever they're doing to the website. But there's 11 paths that you can choose from. So if this is your first time in Toastmasters, go through the assessment so that you can understand which path is going to be right for you. Once you pick that, then go on and sign on to the Toastmasters website. And what I like to do once I sign on to the Toastmasters website is that I look at the entire path from the start. I like to step back and I'd say, I want to see the forest for the trees. So the forest is, I'm looking at, okay, what's going on here? We have our levels. We have levels 1 through 5. what is it going to take for me to get between all of these levels? And so I go in and I click on each one. Level 1, okay, I've got icebreaker, evaluation and feedback, researching and presenting. Okay, what's level 2 about? Okay, looks like we've got 3 projects, and I go through each one like that until so that I can see what it entails. So let me show you. So this is our forest right here. The whole level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. That's pretty much everything. And the reason I do this is so that I'm not getting bogged down into the details. It doesn't matter right now. It doesn't matter that level 5 is about developing my vision. So this is right now I'm on the visionary communication. So it doesn't matter that level 5 is about developing my vision. Quite simply, it's a speech. and that's how I list it here. Is this is a speech. Okay. So once I understand, okay, I've got speech, evaluation. Technically, that's a speech. That's my whole forest. After I look at the entire forest, what I do is then I roll up my sleeves and I look at it more deeply. And what I mean by that is, let's see if it'll let me click on this. Well, no, it wants me to evaluate it. Okay, well, let me do one that I haven't. We'll have our icebreaker. And what I'm looking for is, what is it going to take for me to complete this speech? So once you sign on, it'll start you here. And let's see here. This is what I want to see. Each section that you click on will have a project checklist. So the project checklist, it tells me, okay, this is a 4 to 6 minute speech. Okay, so now I know what I need to do, and I know what it's going to entail. The reason this is important is as we get into the higher levels, didn't mean to close that, but as we get into the higher levels, it's going to become more detailed. So let's take a look at a project. So just to kind of show you the difference. Okay. So let's say, connect with your audience. What's that mean? And I recommend going through each of these portions that it has. Right now, I'm just kind of skipping through to highlight what I feel is important about the project, but I definitely recommend going through and listening to, because you'll find that there's videos that go along with this. So I'd read the introduction, but like I said, I want to look at this so I can see, okay, this is a 5 to 7 minute speech. Okay. There are, as we get to a larger project, such as making a podcast, this is something that you aren't going to be able to just do a 5 to 7 minute speech on. So that's where I like to say the devil is in the details. And this is the reason why I like to dig in and say, well, what is it going to take for me to finish this? Because this isn't just a 5 to 7 minute speech. As we'll see here in just a second. So, as you can tell, I was already looking at this. So project checklist. So what we have to do to complete this is not just a 2 to 3 minute speech. In that 2 to 3 minute speech, we want to preview some of the podcasts that we create, but we have to create a 60-minute podcast here. And it doesn't have to be one podcast episode that's 60 minutes long. It can be an episode of 5 to 10 minute segments. So you can have 6 10-minute segments. And that's really what I like to do when I create a podcast, is just have 6 10-minute segments for podcasts. So this helps you, now you're getting more into project planning, because you're not just going to go in and give a speech as if it were an icebreaker, but you have to do a little bit of work beforehand before you actually give that speech. So let me show you. Now let's get into the trees. Here. Okay, just a second. I think my list closed, so just a second, I'll show that to you. We'll see if we can find it. So this one, if I can make this larger. What I did with this is I wrote out my year. So if I were to complete this in a year, which is generally how I like to go through the path, I alternate between taking a role and giving a speech. So I aim for one speech each month. And between giving those speeches, I take on a role in the club. So you see here, if we have a fictional member who starts the club at the beginning of the year. In our club, the first week of the year, we have a holiday. So the member, in this case, starts the second week. Once they sign on, I recommend go to the club website, understand what that looks like, understand how to sign up for a role on the agenda, and then take on a role. So now we've taken on our role as our timer. And then what we do is, I say, dedicate 1 hour a week. We call it a 1 hour work session. Maybe Saturday, if Saturday is the day when you have some downtime, or whatever day is best for you, but choose one day out of the week for 1 hour and work on just Toastmasters. So this first week, what we did is we spent an hour learning how to sign on to the club website, learning how to sign up for a role on the agenda. And then at the meeting, the next week, we take on that role as a timer. Then we have our 1 hour work session that we do. And here we sign on to the main website of Toastmasters. And this is where we review our path. And then looking back at the entire path, the whole forest, so to speak. Then we take on another role as grammarian. The next week, we go back and we dig in deeper. We look at the trees and we look at the projects and we decide the projects that we want to do. Next, we go on, following week, become a table topics master, take on a role. Then that next week, during our 1 hour work session, we work on preparing our first speech. And the following week, we give our speech. So going through this throughout the year, this is how I've wrote it out. The reason this is important is, say you want to give a podcast. The podcast isn't just a 4 to 6 minute speech that you have to give. There's some background that you have to do, so that you have to go through each week and create a podcast before you can actually go through and give the speech. So I'd like to stop right there and just ask if there's any questions, the Q&A portion here.
Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I would just like to say I absolutely love this. This is phenomenal. And being that I'm now a mentor in my club, I can use this. I would love to model this with my mentors, because I realized when you sign up, when you enroll to become a member of Toastmasters, you have no clue.
Yes.
And because I know I had no clue. I didn't even know that there was a curriculum within Toastmasters. I signed up and then I felt like I just kind of had to jump in.
Yes.
And this would have been so helpful for me to have a guide to move along through.
Yes.
And so what I am planning to do, I'm planning to present some speeches on Toastmasters, and I would love to model this in my speeches to just walk people through how to navigate the pathways. And this is great. I love it. You've done an absolutely phenomenal job. I love it. Thank you.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Connie. And that's precisely the reason why I wanted to do this, because I knew I would be speaking with other seasoned Toastmasters like myself. But as I mentioned, speaking from my personal experience, I floundered around. It's like, okay, what's going on? I know there's something important here, but I just can't figure it out. What I've done is I've just put in the chat is a downloadable link. So if you want to check and see if this works for you, and it has the links to the timelines, and it has my forest versus the trees, so on and so forth. Because here's what happens: you have that member who is eager to get into Toastmasters and they don't know what to do, and soon their excitement turns into anxiety. And we don't want them to go from excited member to anxious member who is too nervous to come back to the club. So that's why I say, don't jump in and become a Toastmaster and give a speech, because from an emotional perspective, that's going to be overwhelming. Yes, maybe it feels like the timer role is a baby role. It's really small. All you have to do is click your timer and say, oh, you spoke for 1 minute and 22 seconds. But there's an emotional aspect to us that goes along with this. It's not just you, but you have your emotions, going with that. Okay,
Hey, Barbara, I got a question.
go ahead.
You said in your all's you have a monthly pathways focus, and
Mhm.
you mentioned the full circle winners. Do you do
Yes.
anything else as part of that meeting? Because I love
Mhm.
that, and we don't do that enough in our club.
Mhm.
Promote those who are doing well. So
Mhm.
do you do anything differently?
Yeah. So what we do is, and right now Becky's a good resource as well, Becky Beggerly.
Mhm.
She's the Vice President of Education this year. And so the third Thursday of each month, we set aside after our invocation, then we have our weekly recognition. I was hoping to find it in our meeting agenda so I could show you, but I wasn't able to find it. And instead of having two speakers, we may have just one speaker. That way we can really highlight and just really, you got to soup it up. I can't believe so and so has taken on the timer role 3 times. It just make it exciting. It's just, you got to make it exciting for your members. Let them know, hey, that was really awesome. I can't believe you took on that invocation role. That was a great invocation. But just finding just those really small things that someone does, and just make it a big deal in a good way, of course.
Yeah. Well, if you're putting it at the beginning of your meeting before a speaker, you're
Mhm.
giving it that
Absolutely.
weight.
Yeah, because a lot of clubs haven't been able to survive, unfortunately, in the Zoom environment. But for us, we have members who are just constantly joining because they're seeing everybody getting recognized. When you come to a meeting, if you say something, it's like, wow, you spoke. I'm really glad you came to the meeting and you spoke and you said something. And just making sure each person feels acknowledged when they come to the meeting, because it's the small things that count, and it's really easy once you start looking for a really small way to recognize someone and make them feel good. Then it becomes easy. At first it may be difficult, but just to say, wow, you joined last month and now you've been the timer and the grammarian and you're an invocator. You're 1/4 of the way through your full circle award. And then, nobody knows. It's a award. We made that up ourselves in our club a couple of years ago because we were trying to figure out how to motivate our members. And we knew that the competent leader manual, was no longer. So this was our way of continuing the competent leader manual, making sure people got recognized for participating in the roles. And obviously we're all adults, but at the same time, we still maybe we don't want little stickers, like an elementary student does, but we do want to be acknowledged, and we do want to know that we're special in some way, and people will just eat it up when you do that. And that actually leads me to, does anyone else have any other questions or
Oh,
comments?
I have one comment and one question, Barbara, very quickly. I always like stickers, so you'd be surprised the rules I probably volunteer for to get a little gold sticker. Like I would be crazy. And second of all, I tend to be a very pen and paper person. I as much as I love digital things and I'm not necessarily intimidated by them, when I'm personally setting goals, I like pen and paper, and another reason I loved our WDTM journal so much. But have you found any ways, either personally or within your club, to satisfy that checklist type mentality for your members? Is it, I know obviously the receipt of the Full Circle Award is a big deal, but do you find that people are just checking it off in their path, or are they printing things off? Are they creating their own tools to set goals? Do you have any experience for that we could emulate?
As far as their personal goals, that's really not necessarily apparent because we're all in our own personal space. So I don't know if someone is, unless I am personally talking to them as their mentor and I know what they're doing, but otherwise I don't know how that part's handled. I like that idea, but yeah, I don't know.
Totally okay. I was just going to get some best practices from you if you happen to know. So thank you very much.
The main thing for us is just souping up that participation. And then maybe the full circle isn't what you do, maybe customizing it according to what you feel your members would like. Just, because we're East Tennessee, West Tennessee, there may be something that someone else may like better, but just kind of some type of award to recognize that people are doing something, because obviously they get recognized for going through pathways. You get your certificate of completion and so forth, but I did a role, so what? Okay. So that's how we do that. And we get people, as you can see on our agenda, when I showed it to you, people were signed up. We don't have, because at first, before we started this, we were always, oh, please, we need somebody to sign up for a role. We still have this but now we have people coming and they want to get the full circle. They want to hear their name mentioned and get recognized. So the third portion of the meeting is kind of what's in it for me type of portion, because that's really what I think about. And I think that's what that motivates people is ultimately what's in it for me. They join the club. They know that there's something there for them. And so my thing is to give them what they want as quickly as possible. And what they want is that acknowledgement that they are growing and developing. So the full circle is one way that we do that with our monthly recognition. Let me see if I can get my screen shared one more time here. Let's see. I created a little haiku of those 4 lines instead of 3. But I like to say, giving back to the club. It helps the club to continue to be successful. It helps me to be successful, and it helps you to be successful as well, because I know that I'm growing and developing by being a member of the club. I know other people are growing and developing as well. And our club is always, let me just see if I can go back. Well, we presidents distinguished for 7 years in a row. So our club is successful. So, and the way we keep that successful is being able to acknowledge our members and making sure that they feel as if they are a part of this. Second, it helps us meet our club goals. We have our DCP, our Distinguished Club Program. And the way I look at it is our club is kind of like a football team. And in order for us to meet our goals each year for the club, one person cannot get all the awards and give all the speeches and carry the club on their back. So we need to find a way to get, obviously we need 4 people to go through level 1. So just me going through level 1 isn't good enough. We need 2 people to go through level 2, and then 2 more people to go through level 2. 2 people to go through level 3, and 2 people to go through level 4 or 5 or get a DTM. So that is a total of, let's see, 4, 8, 10, 12. 12 people need to be able to do something, do something within the roles. So when we get people in and they understand what they can do, how to participate, how to go from having that energy and that excitement for being a member of the club and channeling that energy into action while also keeping that anxiety and nervousness and the butterflies under control. That's really what this whole process is about. It's just taking that person, making sure that they feel secure coming into the meeting and continuing to give the speeches. I look at it this way, and this is the way I explain it to my members as well, is we're going to be in the meeting anyway. So why not get what you paid for and say something? This tabletop Toastmasters is about speaking. I contrasted this with growing up where we were successful because we kept our mouth closed. But Toastmasters is quite the opposite. We're successful because we actually speak. And being able to get as many people as possible to speak at each meeting is where we're going to be successful. That's where the members are going to feel successful because they know they said something. Even if it was just, hey, I found this club because of this, and I'm trying to do this, that in my job, and that's the reason why I'm here. You did something. And I want to recognize that, and I want to acknowledge it. So that is really the whole path in a year for me. So with that, I will just, if there's any questions or anything that we can just kind of open it up for discussion.
I have two things. The first thing is, will you be willing to share your slides?
Yes.
Okay. And the second thing is, how do you said you need 12 people, of course, to maintain that distinguished club status. How do you get people? Do you ask people to commit to completing a level, or how do you manage that?
Well, first, this is where we get into like the club management is we always talk about, we're kind of strategic in what we talk about in our roles. Obviously, every meeting we're going to highlight when someone says something and they speak up, and oh, so and so's in the meeting. I'm so glad to see you here. If you want to say something at the end of the meeting, we would love to hear from you. So at the very beginning of the meeting, we let them know we want you to, you were going to have an opportunity to speak. So if you want to, and then the whole meeting is about keeping that excitement up so that they will want to talk after that meeting or participate. So as far as getting someone through the roles, we talk about mentorship, and we'll just kind of bring it up lightly in conversation throughout the meeting. Oh, we have mentors, so-and-so has been a mentor, and when you sign up, we're not going to just leave you there by yourself, but we're going to assign you a mentor who's going to walk you through, meet with you one-on-one and help you through that process. So they already feel confident that when they join the meeting, that they're not going to just be left out to figure things out on their own. Because we've learned for our mistakes and we don't want anyone else to have to go through that. So we're practicing our own self-improvement. So when someone joins the meeting, joins our club, we let them know immediately, and we try to get them as much as possible. Of course, you're not going to get 100% someone signed up, but as much as possible, get them attached to another member. And the purpose of that member is really a point of contact. So they know when, because it's just like if you've got your best friend and you're like, okay, I'm going to the store. It's just to talk about just those little minor details about what you're doing so that we're staying in touch with them. Once they feel comfortable with that one person within our club, then they will gradually begin to open up to other people and feel comfortable with other people. So I'll give you an example. When I was doing my competent leader path, one of the projects is to mentor someone. So every time someone, this is obviously when we were in the club, but every time a new person would come into our club, I would walk up to them, introduce myself, and let them know, hey, if you join, I would be happy to mentor you. And so it's like, you get me if you join the club. And it did work. I mentored one person. She came in, she was a manager at HCA, and she was so nervous speaking in front of her direct reports. So that's the reason why she joined. I mentored her. The next year, she became secretary. After that, she was open to everyone else. So Becky mentored her, and she became the club president the next year. And not only that, the following year, she became an area director. And that is not usual. You're not going to get someone who's going to go from nervous member in 3 years becoming a district participant. But that's just to tell you, when you're able to hone in and take someone and walk them through and letting them know, yes, I'm available to you, but so and so's available, and being able to, that's how we do it. And that's how we get people through those paths. That way.
Barbara, what was your most difficult or challenging project that you worked on in your path?
I think probably the most, and actually, I'm glad you asked that question, is being able to partner with the Vice President of Education and feeling comfortable doing that. So in preparation for this, I actually, this whole month, I broke this into 3 portions. So the first week I spoke about the incremental speaking. The second week I explored the path, and we looked at Toastmasters and looking at the project. Then the third week, last week, or this week technically, we went in and looked at the trees and how we're going to dig in and complete that path. But being able to partner with someone else, I think that was my biggest learning experience, and the hardest thing is just being able to reach out and say, hey, I want to do this. And because that's for me, is I mentioned being able to talk to somebody, I feel like is the greatest gift that we have, being able to talk to another human being. And I feel like Toastmasters is helping us achieve that goal. So being able to say, this is what I want to do. I'm speaking for an entire hour. I'm nervous. Now I feel like a new Toastmaster all over again. What can we do? So we broke it up into 10-minute portions, and so that I could practice each week. And not only that, it helped me complete my second portion, which is the second project, which is evaluation. So we give a speech, then we receive the evaluation, and we give a second speech based upon that evaluation. So I was able to complete that path, and then I was able to complete another path, inspire your audience. So I'm trying to inspire everyone to kind of take on these activities within their club. But yes, that was the most difficult thing for me, was just being able to reach out, because when you want to be successful in life, you can't just sit in a cave and be successful. At some point, you have to be able to reach out and communicate to at least one other person, and ideally a lot of other people. So that was the most difficult thing for me, being able to say, this is what I want to do. Can you help me achieve that?
Barbara, I think I speak for all of us when I say that you can check the box on inspiring your audience today. So I know I personally feel very rejuvenated, and I want to go take a look at my path right now too. And I even wrote down some things that I'd like to take back to the club. So not only for myself, but some things I'd like to see for our club too. So just wanted to express my appreciation for that.
Cool. Thank you. Let me ask you, Connie, that download, did that work for you? Were you able to download it? And
It's just the incremental sheet.
okay. And then what other portions
Oh,
would
let's
you?
see. Create a report. Okay, developing listening skills, and I really enjoyed that summary that you showed. What is it called? The way through pathways.
Okay.
I really love that. And I also love that outline that you had for your year, what you planned for the year.
Yes, I hope that was in the download.
Okay,
So at the top, check and see at the top of the download and see if it's got a link on it for that.
let's see. I don't see that,
No.
but I don't want to take up time here.
Yes.
I'll figure
I'd
it
like
out.
to see that too. So if you could send that to the masters of like John, I don't know if you got who's collecting stuff to put on that page, but that would be great.
Okay.
If you want to send it to me, I can post the links on the WDTM radio page.
Okay, good deal. I'll put it together and I'll send it to you, John, I guess maybe in the chat or something, the Zoom chat.
You can email it to me. I'll put my email address in here real quick because that's probably easy because I believe this this room's getting ready to close.
Yeah.
It's about to close.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great job, Barbara, by the way.
Yes,
I
thank you,
remember when you
Barbara.
first joined.